I started my career in the practice of law, and I was working in Santa Ana with my own law practice. A good friend of mine called me one day and asked me out to lunch because he had an opening for an assistant general counsel in a home building company. At the end I said, "Oh my gosh, it sounds like a perfect job, but I don't know anything about home building." And his response was, "Well, that doesn't matter, we'll teach you." And I took the position with Signal Landmark, which was a really outstanding home builder. But their biggest project was a little project in Huntington Beach, about 2,000 acres, called Bolsa Chica. They offered me the position of project manager of all of Bolsa Chica. A massive project with every issue known to real estate, from endangered species to oil operations to archaeology. Whatever issue existed on a piece of property existed at Bolsa Chica. And it's one of those things, I think folks don't really understand how much the home building industry gives back to a high quality of life. What home builders do in creativity to address climate change goals, to address habitat protection, to create parks and amenities, it makes for better homes and home communities, in addition to enhancing existing communities. When the land entitlement portion of that project was near its end, Governor Schwarzenegger tapped me to consider coming up and being the state housing director. That was a tough decision for me, actually, because I'd never worked in government. I'd always worked in the private sector. And I think my son was probably about 22 years old at the time. And I can remember chatting with him, I don't know whether to take this job, and it's going to be scary, and I have to move to Sacramento. And he said, "Mother, God gave you gifts, and you have a duty to share those gifts." And I went, "What? When did you learn all that catechism?" You know, it was all about the parable of the talents that in my faith is very important. You don't hide the talents that God gave you, try to share them to make lives better for people. And I took over at HCD with the strong support of the California Building Industry Association. I was very grateful for their support. We were able to roll out enough funding to create 72,000 affordable housing units, farm worker housing, shelter spaces, working in government. I learned so much. You learn to see from the other side of being in the public sector. So about 2 years working for the governor, and then Orange County called me back. Orange County Business Council had an opening, and I thought, well, now this is interesting. I'd been in law, in the private sector in a home building. The public sector, I'd never done nonprofit work. Best job I ever had, because my world got very big, very fast. When you're learning about technology and finance and the interconnectivity of those pods. You know, homelessness is top of everyone's mind. So the Business Council asked me to explore forming a housing trust for private donations to help build shelter. We created a memorandum of understanding between OCBC and NeighborWorks, and thanks to an amazing $5 million generous donation from Disneyland Resort, we were able to kickstart 5 homeless and affordable housing projects in the Anaheim, North Orange County area. If Orange County thrives, we need everyone to thrive as well. It's kind of been sort of the story of my life that a door opened up and I kind of walked through it and I said, this looks a little interesting. I'm mostly an Orange County girl. I guess City of Orange is sort of my hometown. I went to kindergarten there. My dad worked in the defense industry and followed the defense industry contracts from the East Coast to the West Coast. I'm the oldest of 6 children. It was a full house and a lot of family activities. Met my husband. When I started law school, he was leaving law school. We got married and 2 boys, Gerard and Edward. And so I think one of my proudest accomplishments is I have 2 sons, 2 beautiful daughters-in-law, grandchildren that are just an amazing blessing.
Do you love me? Do I love you?
For me, music has been one of those great creative outlets.
You're upset, you're worn out, go inside, lie down.
And you do need to do something else besides work 24/7 to get the creative juices flowing. So music is one of those things for me. No one could predict this career path because it seems disconnected from law to home building to government work to nonprofit work. There's sort of this circadian cycle in my life, and I'm kind of going, Act 4, I got 16 more years I gotta play with over here. What will Act 4 be? You step up, right? Try to make people's lives better. It's a wonderful mantra to think about, to find that common ground for goodness.